He pauses for a long moment on the couch. And then he goes, I just don't think I love you. And I was like, oh yeah, that's over.
Had there not have been a domestic violence situation, it would have been, you need to go to church. You need to get him in church. And y'all need to just pray about it and make it work.
I remember my parents saying, just don't sign the papers. Don't sign the divorce papers.
They also taught me that if you're having issues in your marriage, your kids don't see it.
And then they go into the magic bedroom, whether to talk or whatever, come out and they're fine.
And then we got married in March of 2016, so it was like 5 months.
My marriage is unique in that I chose to get married after 5 months. Yeah, traditional gender roles, everything was okay. Really submit to everything that my husband said or did, like Mom.
Not to have sex before marriage, not to break their purity rings, not to smoke or drink or do anything bad. So they're trying to meet this standard, and so naturally they think, well, I have to marry somebody who has also met that standard of perfection.
And it all like crumbled. I think I grew up thinking that their marriage was perfect. And then now that I'm divorced and I'm hearing both sides from both of them, I'm realizing it's not at all. And it's more so that kind of marriage where it's like, we're from the South, I'm gonna go to church, Christians don't get divorced, you make it work. The wives submit, they don't really get an opinion, they don't get a say. Whatever the husband wants to do or whatever he says is what goes, because they don't make the money, and it's just that religious, like, man versus woman kind of stance. And you don't leave your marriage. You don't have an option. You have to make it work. And if you're miserable, you still stay. And I'm learning that with them. It's like they have 27 years in, and that they're not leaving. There's no point. So with my marriage, I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I was so miserable that I was on antidepressants. But it was like I had to make it work because I had kids and I was a Christian woman, and there was no such thing as divorce. You didn't do that. So I prayed every night, multiple times a day. And I'm talking like pray like on my hands and knees, like crying, praying to make me love this man, or just give me like something to make me happy, to keep me in the marriage so I didn't have to divorce him. And after years of that, I finally was like, okay, like I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done.
And I met this guy and we fell into traditional roles. Both had the same faith background. Both wanted kids. He checked off all the boxes. And so the practical day-to-day, like, how do I communicate when I feel things that A, either don't feel right, or B, I need to tell this person? That was never modeled, or I didn't know how to do that in my relationship. So when those things happened and suddenly things weren't okay, I didn't know what to do there other than just stay married. I don't blame my parents for my decisions, but what was modeled for me as a kid definitely translated into my early 20s, what I viewed as important in a marriage. But when the rubber hit the road, none of that practical stuff was there.
So I did see that picture of marriage in my home. And I think every child does this. You automatically think that your marriage, if you choose to enter into that commitment, is going to be like that and is going to reflect that. So for me, I did have this idealized view of marriage, which kind of put pressure on me to make sure that I found someone who is nearly perfect and who had no flaws, no mistakes, who was like A++ in the godly department. And it's like, I remember in college, this is terrible, like writing down a list of things that I wanted in a future husband. And on the list was like integrity, honesty, leadership skills, morality, like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, looking back on it now, like no one is that. I'm not that. Like it almost caters this sense of like self-righteousness in young people who grow up in the church, because they think like no one's good enough for them and no one's going to meet that standard that they themselves were brought up into.
The biggest lesson as a woman going through what I went through is that you can trust your gut. You can trust what's going on inside your body. You're the only one inside of it, and you know that doesn't feel right. That treatment wasn't okay. I can say no. I can have an opinion.
I mean, I think there's, if you're at a point to where you are taking antidepressants for years, then you probably shouldn't be with that person. I mean, you can go to church as much as you want, you can pray as much as you want, but if you're somewhere that you're not meant to be, whether you believe in a higher power or not, you're not going to be happy. And I don't think that staying specifically in a marriage when you're miserable with that person and you know that you're not meant to be together is not worth staying for the sake of religion.
The power that I have and the value that I have as an individual and as a female should never be tainted and should never be undermined by anyone else, let alone a man. And I have worth, I have value, I have abilities, I have gifts and talents. And even though I felt like my worth was nothing when the divorce was happening, and even prior to that moment, it's like I regained it back. And I regained that inner strength that I had when I was younger. And it's been a process, but I think the main thing that I've learned is that I'm never going to let someone demonize me or take away from my belief in myself and who I am as a person.
We as women were taught to care more about everybody else than our own selves. And that included, again, like I said, like, you don't share how you're actually feeling. If you do share, you better have a solution, which in many cases involves shoving that feeling down and not wearing it on your face, especially. And you being uncomfortable is less important than somebody else's comfort, especially if it's a guy. And that will be hard for some people to hear.